from the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to Firstpost America, your global pit stop for the latest news and headlines from the United States and around the world. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. We'll get you a roundup of all the day's top stories, but first, let's take a look at the headlines. Amid the going war in Gaza, Hamas proposes a ceasefire deal. The group offers the release of Israeli hostages in exchange for 700 to 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak rules out holding general elections in May. Elections will now be held in the second half of the year. U.S. lawmakers put a $40 million aid package for war-torn Haiti on hold, citing a lack of details. The U.S. State Department is working with Congress to secure the release of funds. Al-Qaeda-linked terror group Al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility for attacking a popular hotel in Somalia's capital of Mogadishu. Somalia forces say multiple troops sustained injuries, but the threat has been neutralized. Popular fast food chain McDonald's has been hit by a technical outage in multiple countries. Thousands of customers in Japan, Hong Kong, Australia, and New Zealand were unable to order food due to a glitch in computer software. Our top story today is Russia, where the presidential election is now underway. Vladimir Putin is headed for another 6-year term as Russia's president, and this will make him the longest-serving Kremlin head since Joseph Stalin. Russians vote today through Sunday across the country's 11 time zones, from far eastern regions near Alaska to the western enclave of Kaliningrad on the Baltic coast. The result is all but certain to extend Putin's rule throughout the decade and into the 2030s. Now, there are 3 token challengers also vying for the presidency, but they are all backed by the Kremlin.
Thanks to Vladimir Putin, he's doing everything in Kamchatka. He helps people, helps pensioners, everyone. He's a very good leader.
I am generally fine with everything. I like what's happening now. If we objectively evaluate the beginning and the end, in my conscious life, since I started earning money myself, entered the adult world, I am generally fine with this dynamic.
I feel pride because we have been voting for our leadership all our lives, and this is a lesson for our grandchildren.
I always vote, always, because it's the responsibility of a citizen. One needs to be responsible because the future depends on this.
Now, voting is also underway in regions annexed by Russia in Ukraine's east, where Moscow's troops are attempting to exert authority. Ukraine says those living in regions illegally annexed by Russia are being coerced to vote in the election. In fact, Kyiv calls it an illegitimate effort by Moscow to tighten control over the region.
They need to show that everything they call special military operation and that they came to rescue eastern Ukraine, Donetsk and Luhansk from nationalists and Nazis, to show that people were waiting for them here, and they want to do that using the instrument of voting. You must understand that the people in these territories have to survive. They take part in dismantling the rubble or equipment. They work in communal establishments. There are lists here, and when they come to work, they are asked whether they voted or not. These lists are checked. A check is put next to who they voted for. So this is a conveyor where people are forced to go, under the muzzle of a rifle, or the threat of losing one's work, losing social benefits, medical support. So this is the compulsion to vote.
Ahead of the elections, Vladimir Putin called on Russians to use the vote to show their unity towards his leadership. The Kremlin says the vote will show that Russians back Putin's assault on Ukraine. The 71-year-old Putin has seen an uptick in his popularity. In fact, his approval rating is currently at 86%, up from 71% before the invasion of Ukraine. Now, this is Putin's highest approval rating since Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014. In fact, in recent months, there has been a spike in Putin's approval rating amid Moscow's battlefield advances and the West's flagging support for military aid to Kyiv. In fact, Putin's position has also been bolstered by the resilience of the Russian economy in the face of Western sanctions. Meanwhile, Russia's ambassador to the United States said the embassy had received a number of threats in connection with the Russian election. Earlier, Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service accused Washington of trying to meddle in its presidential election. Russia claimed the U.S. planned to interfere and launch a cyber attack on Russia's online voting system. But the White House has dismissed these allegations, calling them false propaganda. And from the presidential election in Russia to the presidential election in the United States, President Biden is on the campaign trail in key battleground states. Meanwhile, his predecessor, Donald Trump, is battling legal woes in a court of law. In the latest, a Florida judge rejected Trump's motion to dismiss the classified documents case against him. Trump's counsel argued that criminal charges under the Espionage Act were unclear. However, the judge said that ruling in favor of Trump would be an extraordinary step. Still, Donald Trump has already pleaded not guilty to 40 criminal charges in the matter. Now, he is accused of illegally taking sensitive government documents when he left the White House in 2021. On his social media app, Truth Social, Trump described the case as a witch hunt. And his attorneys have repeatedly pointed, albeit falsely, to past presidents who they say also kept classified documents but were not prosecuted. Trump's legal team claims Ronald Reagan kept his own journals from his presidency that included classified documents, and Bill Clinton kept tape recordings from his presidency in his sock drawer. They have also repeatedly raised the special counsel probe into President Biden's handling of classified documents during his time as vice president. And speaking of President Biden, he went to Wisconsin and Michigan to shore up support ahead of November. In Wisconsin, he unveiled a $36 million infrastructure investment in the city of Milwaukee. The president is also announcing $3.3 billion in projects in 42 states.
For generations, Black, Brown, and Native American, Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians communities weren't fully included in our democracy or our economy. Today, we're recognizing that history to make new history. I'm here to announce the first of its kind investment, $3.3 billion in 132 projects in 42 states, going to help right historic wrongs. Here in Milwaukee will mean $36 million in new federal funding to rebuild 6th Street. It'll mean wider sidewalks for children walking to school, safer bike lanes for residents and visitors, dedicated bus lanes to get to work faster, new trees to provide shade, and modern infrastructure to prevent sewage from flowing into the Milwaukee River and the Lake Michigan. These are life-changing improvements. They're also going to make it easy for historic Black communities in the North and Latino communities in the South to access jobs, school, and entertainment. Opportunities in the city and central hub, from watching the Milwaukee Bucks play to attending Milwaukee Area Technical College.
Now, Wisconsin is a politically important state that President Biden needs to win in order to secure the magic number of 270 electoral votes required to get reelected. In 2020, his margin of victory was less than 1%. And in 2016, Wisconsin supported Republican nominee Donald Trump. President Biden also traveled to Michigan's bellwether county of Saginaw, where he's trying to energize black and union-affiliated voters. Now, Saginaw stands out as the sole Michigan county to have voted for the winning presidential candidate in the last 4 elections. In fact, leaders in both parties say it will be an uphill task for either presidential candidate to win the White House without winning Michigan. And now on to the Middle East, where the Houthis have issued more threats against commercial ships passing through the Red Sea. The rebel group has warned of carrying out more attacks during the holy month of Ramadan.
Our main battle is to prevent ships associated with the Israeli enemy, not only from passing through the Arabian Sea, the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, but also with the grace and assistance of Allah Almighty. We aim to prevent their crossing through the Indian Ocean and from South Africa towards the Cape of Good Hope. This is an important, advanced and significant step, and we have already begun to carry out operations related to it. There is no option for the American or British except to stop the aggression against Gaza and to halt the starvation of the people in Gaza.
And there are now alarming reports that the Houthis have test-fired a hypersonic missile. Russian state media claims the Iran-backed group test-fired a missile that reached Mach 8, or 8 times the speed of sound. The group has also claimed that the Houthis plan on domestically manufacturing these weapons. Hypersonic weapons pose a crucial challenge to missile defense systems because these weapons achieve extremely high speeds and can shift their trajectory mid-flight, making them almost impossible to intercept. In fact, only a handful of nations like Russia, China, and the United States possess hypersonic technology. However, Iran also claims that some of its missiles are capable of reaching hypersonic speeds. Now, Tehran has been the primary supplier of weapons to the Houthis. The addition of hypersonic weapons in the Houthi arsenal is clearly a game changer, as it makes securing the Red Sea a greater challenge for the United States and its allies. In fact, for weeks, the Yemen-based group has warned of military surprises in the Red Sea, and they've also further intensified their attacks in the region.
This week we carried out 12 operations targeting ships and warships, carried out with a total of 58 ballistic missiles, cruise missiles and drones in the Red Sea, the Arabian Sea and the Gulf of Aden. This time they reached unprecedented distances, and 3 of the operations reached the Indian Ocean by the grace and assistance of Allah Almighty. This week we have reached the target of hitting 73 ships and warships.
Now, Western intelligence agencies are yet to comment on the reports about the Houthis claiming possession of a hypersonic missile. However, if the reports are indeed true, then this certainly marks a significant escalation in the Red Sea security situation. And now, shifting our focus to Africa, after weeks of protests and political turmoil, Senegal will vote for a new leader on March 24th. President Macky Sall has already announced he will not seek a 3rd term. And this marks the first time in Senegal's history that an incumbent is not on the ballot. Still, there are no shortage of candidates vying for the presidency. In fact, a total of 19 candidates are competing to be the next president of the West African nation. Our next report has the details.
The Republic of Senegal will vote for a new leader on the 24th of March. The polls had initially been postponed to December by President Macky Sall. However, Senegal's top court ruled against the president, calling his action unconstitutional. And it looks like the political turmoil has finally ended. Election fever has gripped the nation. Political rallies and campaigning are in full swing, and the Senegalese voters are spoiled for choice. 19 candidates are running for president. Senegal's leader Macky Sall has completed 2 terms, and he's confirmed that he will not be running again. For the first time in Senegal's history, the incumbent will not be on the ballot. President Sall has endorsed Prime Minister Amadou Ba as his successor. Both leaders are from the ruling coalition, but despite Sall's endorsement, Amadou Ba is not the most popular candidate. The favourite candidate is the opposition leader Basiru Diomaye Faye. Faye is a 49-year-old tax inspector who has the backing of firebrand politician Usman Sonko. Faye and Sonko were sent to jail last year after having a fallout with President Sall. But now they've been released from prison and their supporters are overjoyed.
Only Sonko can do this. Everyone is behind Sonko. Let's stay focused. He's clear. It's crazy they've pinned all sorts of things on him. But today he's clear.
It's like he came from Mecca. All the country should be out to welcome him. This is disgusting from a government. You jailed someone and he is a celebrity when he is out. This is a victory. We love Sonko.
Sonko remains a popular leader, but he has been charged for being morally corrupt. So he won't be running for president and has urged his supporters to fully support Faye. And Faye is completely capitalizing on Sonko's popularity. Another presidential hopeful is two-time mayor from Senegal's capital, Dakar. Though widely popular in the city of Dakar, Khalifa Sall had been in jail for 5 years on charges of fraud. He was released in 2019 following a pardon by President Macky Sall. Khalifa Sall is big on promoting sustainable development and sustainable living. That's because 70% of Senegal lives off of the agriculture and livestock sector. Anta Babakar is the only female candidate. If she wins, she'll be the first woman to serve as Senegal's president. The 40-year-old is an entrepreneur. She took over Senegal's largest poultry company from her father. Babakar wants to boost Senegal's private sector. She also wants to promote free healthcare and reform the education system. There are two major concerns for voters ahead of the presidential polls. The first is youth employment. Successive governments have failed to increase jobs. Almost 35% of young Senegalese are currently unemployed. The second major issue is the rise in the cost of living. Inflation in Senegal peaked to 14% 2 years ago. At least one-third of the country is below the poverty line. And these economic hardships have been amplified with the global food crisis. However, things are starting to look up for Senegal. The West African nation plans to use the export of oil and gas to boost its economy. With voting less than 2 weeks away, Senegal is gearing up for a change in leadership, and the young population is wholeheartedly welcoming it.
And finally, to Japan, which is on high alert. That's because of a mysterious infection that is surging across the country. Japan's health ministry has advised people to take COVID pandemic-like precautions to deal with this bacterial infection commonly known as STSS. But what is this deadly infection, its symptoms, and how is it spreading so rapidly across Japan? Our next report offers answers to these critical questions.
Japan is staring at a potential health crisis. A mysterious, rare but dangerous infection has made its way deep inside the land of the rising sun. And it's spreading at a record rate while doctors and health officials struggle to identify the cause. This bacterial infection is what doctors call the streptococcal toxic shock syndrome, commonly known as the STSS. Most cases of STSS are caused by a bacterium commonly known as Strep A. The symptoms are similar to those caused by later strains of the coronavirus. It can cause sore throat mainly in children. Many people could be infected without knowing, as they may not fall ill, so essentially they become carriers. Older people can experience symptoms that are like a common cold. In rare cases, the symptoms can worsen to tonsillitis, pneumonia, and meningitis. Strep A infections can be treated with antibiotics, but severe cases could need intensive medical attention. In some cases, it can cause serious illnesses, health complications, and even death, particularly in adults over 30. About 30% of STSS cases are fatal. So how does this infection spread? Much like COVID-19, it spreads through droplets and physical contact. The bacterium can also infect patients through wounds on the hands and feet. Authorities in Japan have confirmed the spread of a highly infectious strain of STSS. Japan's National Institute of Infectious Diseases, or the NIID, is still investigating this virus. They say the number of cases in 2024 will exceed those recorded in 2023. So far, 378 cases have already been recorded this year in all but 2 of Japan's 47 prefectures. 941 cases were recorded in 2023. So, what caused the rapid rise of these infections in Japan since last year? Some experts believe it's connected to lifting of restrictions imposed during the coronavirus pandemic. Japan removed all pandemic border measures in April 2023. In May 2023, the government downgraded COVID-19 status from Class 2, which includes tuberculosis and SARS, to Class 5, placing it on legal par with the seasonal flu. These measures prompted people to lower their guard. Many abandoned basic measures to prevent infections, like wearing masks, and sanitizing hands also took a back seat. As the cause of these infections remains a mystery, Japan's health ministry is asking its people to follow the same hygiene precautions they did during the coronavirus outbreak. But the question is, will Japan now see a return of the pandemic way of life?
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for joining us. Have a good weekend, and we look forward to seeing you right back here on Monday. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.
Polls opened in Russia this morning for the country's